Hey folks, not sure if anybody's out there listening or not yet. This is Dave Rempis getting ready for a live stream in a few minutes here, presented by Hot House Global. They're just getting underway, starting to get their technical stuff together. They're doing a little introduction over on Hot House Global TV. So I'm going to sit tight here while they're getting that all put together. Howard Mandel, who's a jazz journalist, will be making some introductions for tonight's program. So I'm just going to hang tight. I hope you'll sit with me for 3-4 minutes while that all happens. And hang out, stick around. We'll be back real soon. Hey everybody. Still killing a little bit of time here waiting for Hot House Global to give me the cue when they're done making introductions over on their live stream. So I'm going to be going in just a few minutes here, so just sit tight and hopefully we'll be back real soon. Looks like the Hot House Global just kicked in. Yes, technical aspects of the COVID-19 era. So this stream is actually going out through my website, it's going out through the Hot House Global website, it's going out through a lot of different places. So just trying to make all that work together properly is part of the challenge. I think this is the third concert that Hot House Global has been the lead on producing. So I'm keeping an eye on their stream on my computer out of the corner of my eye to see when they're up and running, and just waiting for the cue from them to get going. Who we got out there? A few folks looks like. So, what time is it? 7:01. Yeah, we got a few minutes left, so I'm not going to rush these folks at Hot House too much. I think they're just kicking on now. Please hang tight with me, and I'll be playing some saxophone in a few minutes, I swear. Alright, I see Hot House Global now has their program underway. They're doing a little introduction here by their executive director. And you can watch that at Hot House Global also if you like. If you're watching at daverempis.com, that's also great. Feel free to jump in on the chat, say hello. I'm going to be just killing a couple minutes here while they take care of doing their announcements and whatnot. So thanks for joining me tonight. Once we're ready to go, I'm going to kick off with some baritone stuff tonight. I think I got a few friends tuning in. We got Adam coming in from Ireland. Paul Nilsson Love is out there watching in Norway, I know. Joe and Early, thanks for checking in, everybody. Very excited to be playing again tonight. This weekly thing is kind of a really nice outlet to be able to have in this very weird time period. So I appreciate you folks tuning in. As I mentioned a little while ago, we're just waiting on Hot House Global to give me the cue as they finish up the introductions over on their channel. So that's just coming. So I'm actually just about to get started. And just got a cue from them. So it'll be just about 30 seconds, I'm guessing. Something like that. I'm going to close my computer so that's not distracting me while I'm playing. Yeah, who else we got here? Biscuit Gecko. Yeah, I'm definitely going to do some Michael Bolton covers tonight. That sounds like a great idea. I actually did the Waitresses that last week. That was kind of fun, but that's not quite Michael Bolton. But I do have a couple of covers planned for this week. So, all right, I'm going to get underway here. For those of you who have been waiting for a little bit already, my name is Dave Rempis. I'm a saxophone player here in Chicago. Very happy to be here tonight. One of the few outlets I have during this COVID-19 era to work on some music, to perform a little bit. I'm coming to you tonight from my practice space here in the Edgewater neighborhood of Chicago. I'm very lucky to have a practice space near my house at the Unity Lutheran Church. I have about an 8-foot by 4-foot practice space here where I spend quite a good amount of time lately. Yeah, this is kind of the workshop where I've been doing stuff for the last several years. As I mentioned, I'm a saxophonist here in Chicago. I run Aerophonic Records, which is my own record label. Spending more and more time on that lately, trying to get more recorded music out there since there are no concerts available right now. I also work with the Elastic Arts Foundation here in Chicago as the board president and as a curator for about 20 years now, doing the Thursday night jazz and improvised music series. And I also work with the Hyde Park Jazz Festival here in Chicago. So a few of the things that I work on musically and professionally. I'm very happy to be here tonight. This performance is curated by Hot House Global. Really appreciate the invitation from them. Oh, they just gave me another cue here. Okay, they're about to go live with me on their channel. We've been going live for a little bit already. But I'm going to just start playing when they when they give me the go ahead. Hey Charlie, thanks for tuning in, man. Yeah, so killing a little time. I am using tonight's performance and every Wednesday night's performance as an opportunity to launch a brand new recording on Aerophonic Records. 2 weeks ago, it was a group called Heaven Orchestra that was organized by Ingebrigt Hookerflatten. That was a 9-piece band and a recording that was made in 2013. Last week, I released a duo record called Hornithology with myself and Mars Williams, both on saxophone. This week, I've got a brand new record that we're launching tonight that I just put up live a little while ago. It's called The Eagle, and it's with a few great musicians who I've had the pleasure to work with fairly regularly over the years. Michael Foster, who's a great young saxophonist from New York, Jason Roebke on bass, and Tyler Damon on drums. And that record was recorded last March of 2019 at the Hungry Brain here in Chicago. And that record is now available at aerophonicrecords.com or at the Bandcamp page where it'll direct you to get your digital download. You can check it out there, listen to it, buy it. All the proceeds from that will go evenly to all of the musicians involved. I would love it if rather than make, say, a PayPal or other donation for the concert tonight, that you might consider going there and buying a recording from my record label. That's really a fantastic way to support my artistic endeavors at the moment. So I'm going to do a few different pieces tonight. The first one that I wanted to open with is a piece by Duke Ellington, appropriate for the season, which is almost the end of winter here in Chicago. We're maybe getting close to that. This is called A Flower is a Lovesome Thing. My favorite recording of which is on a record called The Unknown Sessions that my friend Jeb Bishop gave to me years ago, which is a small band Ellington recording. So this is a piece I also did on my solo record Lattice, which came out in 2017. So thanks very much for tuning in. Thanks Hot House Global for inviting me. This is Dave Rempis, and here we go. Thanks very much. That was A Flower is a Lovesome Thing by the great Billy Strayhorn, I believe, actually. Going to play a few more pieces for you. I want to mention once again, my name is Dave Rempis. My record label is Aerophonic I would love it if, rather than, for example, making a donation tonight, that you would go to my record label and purchase a record. I'm using these weekly Wednesday night streams that I'm doing is the opportunity to launch a brand new digital-only release each week. Some stuff from the vault, so to speak, that's been recorded over the last few years but hasn't yet seen the light of day. Since I'm at home not playing concerts, I figured I would take this opportunity to get some of that stuff out there to the broader public. So tonight I'm releasing a quartet recording called The Eagle, and it features Michael Foster from New York on saxophones, Jason Roebke on bass, and Tyler Damon on drums. It was recorded last year at the Hungry Brain in Chicago in March of 2019. It's a fantastic band. Michael Foster, if you don't know him, is an incredible young saxophone player from New York. A lot of people know him as a pretty rugged experimentalist. Although I can say from having him stay at my apartment a few times, his tenor sound is like Coleman Hawkins and his soprano sound is like Sidney Bechet. It's amazing to hear him practice because his tone on the instrument and his abilities on it are really truly astounding. Beautiful player from New York, very much worth checking out. Jason Roebke, the bass player on this recording, is somebody who I've been working with since 1998. We have a very long history, and as he pointed out to me the other day, this is actually the first recording that we've put out together since 2005, since we did a quartet recording together on 482 Music that came out with Jim Baker and Tim Daisy many years ago called Out of Season. And Tyler Damon, the drummer on that record, is somebody who I've been working with a whole lot over the last few years in my trio Kuzu, in a duo context, and in other ad hoc groupings. Tyler is like somebody who moved to Chicago a few years ago now, but had already created a lot of different connections in the city here, living in Bloomington, Indiana. And when he moved here, he's really kind of become one of the first call percussionists on the improvised music scene for sure. Totally amazing drummer. So I very much urge you to check out the brand new recording that just came out officially about a half hour ago. That's at aerophonicrecords.com. Just look under digital releases. And the name of the record, again, is called The Eagle. All the proceeds from that get split equally amongst all of the musicians who are on it. So another good way to put some love out there to the art and music community at this time, since everyone's basically out of work. I'm going to continue with an improvisation. I grabbed the wrong horn on alto saxophone. I was very lucky the other night to hear Joe McPhee on the quarantine concerts that are run through Experimental Sound Studio here in Chicago, and he was being interviewed by a very old friend of mine, Ken Vandermark, and he was talking about making the choice at some point to move towards completely improvised material rather than writing compositions still, and described working with Pauline Oliveros and really thinking about basically letting the path unfold in front of you. That's what I often do as a musician, and so that's what I'm going to continue with. The next few pieces is a few free improvised things for you that I hope you'll enjoy. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks very much. That was a little improvisation for you. Once again, my name is Dave Rempis. I'm here tonight on a concert curated by Hot House Global. Big thanks to them for inviting me tonight. I do have a brand new record out today called The Eagle. It's available at aerophonic.records.com. Please check that out. I think you'll see the link in my bio or on the screen that you're watching. A few new hard copy releases on the label include a brand new record with Joe McPhee on reeds and trumpet, Tamika Reed on cello, Brandon Lopez on bass, and Paul Nilsson Love on drums. That just went on sale a few weeks ago. It's called Of Things Beyond Thule, Volume 2. Volume 1 came out on vinyl back in February and is now mostly sold out, aside from a waiting list for the last few copies. So Volume 2 is now available. The official release date is May 19th, which is next week. I would love it if you pick up a copy of that. The other new hard copy release that just came out on Aerophonic Records is a duo record with Frank Rosalie on percussion, one of my very long-term collaborators. Frank moved to Amsterdam from Chicago a few years ago, and so we've kept in touch in various ways, doing a few tours together, and on his one visit back in 2018 we made a brand new record. So I hope you'll check those out. The duo with Frank is called Codes Myths. Also, as I mentioned, available at aerophonicrecords.com. I'm going to continue doing these live stream concerts every Wednesday night. Next week I will be back. You can check it out at daverempis.com/live. That concert's sponsored by Sidebar New Orleans, which is a fantastic venue down in New Orleans. If anyone down there knows it, Andy Dirta's curating that, but a lot of New Orleans friends play there quite regularly. Jeff Albert and Helen Gillet and Doug Garrison and Dan Osterreicher, and a lot of great New Orleans musicians work there a lot. It's really become the home for improvised music in New Orleans. So I hope you'll check that out too. I'm going to do another improvisation for you now. This is a piece on tenor. The horn's a little cold because my practice space doesn't have any heat, and it's Chicago, so it's still cold at this time of year. So I'm going to try to warm it up a little first. tenor saxophone improvisation. I'm going to chat a little bit more because, that's one of the things about this new streaming format that feels like something needs to be done differently rather than just running it like a normal everyday performance that you might do at a club or something. And one of the things that has been distracting my attention a little bit over the last few weeks has been kind of reflecting on where I came from musically, some of the things that happened to me when I was younger. And when I was looking at the bill tonight, for those of you watching on Hot House Global, you'll notice that this is part of a triple bill. At 8 o'clock, Janice Miss Earl Mitchell is going to be performing solo, a fantastic flautist here in Chicago, composer, educator. And at 9 o'clock, Charles Rumbach's Fast Shadows is happening with a bunch of fantastic musicians, Macy Stewart, Jim Baker, some incredible dancers, Jasmine Mendoza. I believe Marie Casimir is on it, although I'm not positive about that, and I know Kim Alpert is doing visuals for that, so that's going to be a really incredible lineup at 9 p.m. As I was thinking about those today, I posted something on Instagram about this concert, and a friend of mine got in touch and said, "Oh wow, you're doing a double bill with Janice. I used to know her from the School of the Art Institute." And he said, "You've got to check out these videos that she did in the 90s called Point Counterpoint that are on YouTube." So I dialed one up, and the first one I found was called Scat/Rap. And it's pretty great. It looks like it's from about 1990 or 91, and Janice is there with a drummer, and they're kind of moving to different places all over the city of Chicago where they're performing. And one of the places that she sets up in front of is a club called the Bop Shop. That used to be on Division Street in the middle of Wicker Park at Division and Wood. And it really brought me back because it was actually the first jazz club I went to when I moved to Chicago to go to college in 1993. I had a jazz combo coach named Steve Ramsdell, who was a guitarist, and he had a gig coming up at the Bop Shop. And so probably the first week I moved to Chicago, I went to this club to check it out. And it was a pretty amazing experience. I grew up in Boston, and coming out to Chicago, it's a much bigger city. It just feels way more urban and way more big than a place like Boston. And I remember driving down Lakeshore Drive from Evanston and getting off at North Avenue, coming down LaSalle, and turning onto Division, and seeing Cabrini Green for the first time, which was a pretty powerful and eye-opening experience. And we continued across Division over to Wicker Park, which at the time on a Tuesday night at 9:30 was like a ghost town. I mean, it was completely empty. There was nobody on the street. It felt very impressive, the scale of the architecture here in Chicago. And I was just amazed by the emptiness of it, which is kind of funny because nowadays if you went to Wicker Park, it's always packed full of people 24 hours a day. But at that time it was a different story. So the Bop Shop became a regular stop for me. Over the next few years I went there quite regularly. My junior year of college I went abroad for a year, and I was studying abroad. And when I came back, I joined kind of a funk jam band called Mr. Slinks. At my university, and we had a regular standing gig on Thursday nights at the Bop Shop, which was really my first regular gig in the city of Chicago. I think it was every 2 weeks that we would play there, and it was great. We would pack the place out and play kind of a weird mix of Chicago blues meets jam band meets weird free improvisation, and they would just kind of let me go off and take these long 10-minute solos and whatnot, and there would be a bunch of kids dancing out front. Everybody would probably, who I know now, would probably give me a lot of shit for being in that band and make fun of it, but it was quite fun at the time, and it was a great first gig experience. And as I got out of college, I was, I'd been managing a cafe all through college, and I thought, I should get a bartending job. And so I figured I'd ask at the Bop Shop and see if they would hire me as a bartender. In the meantime, the club had closed in Wicker Park because of gentrification, so they got pushed out. They moved up to Andersonville for a minute, for those of you who know Chicago, into what was a Middle Eastern restaurant at the time. And it was two storefronts together. On one side they had a bar, and the other side they had a restaurant. But it seemed like they couldn't possibly get enough people in there to fill it, so they rented it out to Kate Smith, who owned the Bop Shop. So she was up there for a couple of months, and that was one of the first places where I met Jim Baker, the amazing piano player and electronics player, who's going to be also playing tonight with Charles's band. I met him there for the first time on a double bill that we did with his terrible funk band while he was playing a duo with Damon Short on percussion. And that was great. I mean, I think I'd seen Jim play before, but it was the first time I actually got a chance to talk to him. And man, he knows how to talk. He can he can take you to another place musically and personally. Jim's a really special guy. So I very much remember that experience. And the Bop Shop, after moving up to Andersonville, for those of you who know Chicago, that storefront later became Stargaze, which was like the only lesbian bar in Chicago for a long time. And more recently, it turned into Jerry's Sandwiches as the neighborhood has become more and more gentrified. And thankfully, that place closed, but God knows what it's going to become now. But so the Bop Shop in the summer of '97 moved down to Roosevelt and Wabash in the South Loop of Chicago, which at the time was still kind of rough and tumble. And the club that it moved into previously had been called the Cleopatra Show Lounge. And it was owned by an old Greek guy named George Mitchell, who had been a restaurant owner in the South Loop for many years. A lot of people who went to school at the School of the Art Institute would know him for George Mitchell's Artist Cafe on South Michigan Avenue, which was a pretty well-known diner there that a lot of students would hang out at, which was a 24-hour diner. But he also owned this strip club called the Cleopatra Show Lounge right at the corner of Roosevelt and Wabash, next door to the Roosevelt Wabash Hotel, which at the time was a big SRO hotel. And so I went down in August of 1997 and I asked the owner for a job there as a bartender. And she said, well, yeah, maybe. Why don't you come by next week and we'll try you out and see how you do. We should have a big night. I think it was a Monday or Tuesday. So I went down the next week, and as it turned out, the Rolling Stones were playing at Soldiers Field a couple blocks away from there. And she was expecting a big night, and we were at the bar. It was probably 7 o'clock, and there were some people coming in, but not enough to like really justify two bartenders. So I said, look, I'm going to go on the corner and get some business in here. So I walked out to the corner and just started barking and getting people into the bar, yelling last drink before Soldiers Field. And in no time, the bar was like packed full of people, and I got hired. I got my bartending job, which I was very excited about. I had met a ton of people there. I poured my first martini for anyone there, which was a hilarious experience because one of our bar regulars, whose name I've forgotten, but very well-dressed older African-American gentleman who would come in every day after work. And he came in my first night bartending and he ordered a gin martini. And, I didn't know much about bartending. I'd read some cocktail books and whatnot. And so I pulled out a martini glass and I poured some warm gin in it. And I poured some warm vermouth on top, and I put a few olives in it, and I put it on the bar, and he took one sip of it and kind of sputtered it out all over the bar, and looked over at Kate Smith, the owner, who was sitting at the end, and said, "Kate, come here. You got to teach this boy how to make a martini." So that was how I first learned to make a martini. Kate came behind the bar and showed me how to chill a glass and chill alcohol and shake it and pour it into a glass. So from there I was able to make a martini, but I was also able to make a living as a bartender for quite a long time. Some of the other things that happened to me at the Bop Shop, which were pretty amazing, I met a lot of very special musicians. Lynn Halliday, fantastic Chicago tenor saxophone player, led the open mic session there every Tuesday night. He also had Robert Barry in the band, who a lot of people know from playing with Sun Ra. He'd worked with so many different people over the years. So the two of them were in this band that would play on Tuesday night. And, Lynn was an incredible saxophone player, an incredible character. I think he was probably in his early 60s at that time, but he lived a very, very hard life, and he looked like he was probably about 85. He was on crutches and had dentures and, really couldn't get around very well, completely emaciated. some weeks he would show up and play amazing. I mean, you couldn't believe what he was doing, the way he looked. And other weeks he just wasn't in that good shape, and he died not long thereafter. But it was a very beautiful experience to get a chance to know him and to know Robert a little bit down there. I also got to know another very long-term friend and colleague of mine, Mike Reed, who was a drummer on the vocal open mic jam session there on Wednesday nights with a pretty goofy band and a pretty goofy lineup of people who used to come down for it. But Mike was there soldiering it out. I think it was pretty soon after college for him too, and he was looking for gigs in the city. And so that's where he and I first connected, and we went on to do a lot of different things together over the years, musically and professionally and everything else. So great to meet all those people. The set of the Bop Shop down there was really like a Cassavetes film. I don't know how to describe it, like tiered seating in a club that fit about 100 people with like leather banquettes and brass. There was still a stripper pole on stage. It was just an amazing place to see a concert, like smoke filled, a side of Chicago that like you really just don't see anymore. And the best part was that George Mitchell, who was the owner, would come downstairs every single night. No matter who was playing, it might be Von Freeman, it might be a singer, it might be Ken Vandermark playing really outside stuff. George Mitchell would come down with this guy who was there to help him down the stairs, who I think lived upstairs also. He'd sit in the booth closest to the bar, and he'd love every minute of every single performance that was happening. He'd drink his vodka on the rocks and just be the sweetest guy in the world. Say thank you to everybody, clap, be so into it, man. And that was just a very inspiring thing to see, this crazy old Greek guy who loved every minute of the music that he could possibly get. So I had a great time working at the Bop Shop, and it led to a lot of great things for me. I want to play a piece dedicated to Kate Smith, who was the owner of the Bop Shop at that time. And I apologize for all the talking, but as I said, it's kind of a nice opportunity doing these podcasts or streams or whatever to change it up a little bit and add a little something different. So I hope you don't mind me indulging. Oh, the other thing about Kate Smith is that she told me her best moment as the owner of the Bop Shop was when she got Anita O'Day to come out sometime probably around 1995 to come and do a weekend at the Bop Shop. And if you know Anita O'Day, man, she's fantastic. And I just love the fact that Kate was so excited to have Anita O'Day in the club. So this is for Kate and Anita O'Day. Thanks. Not sure what time it is. I'm going to take a quick look. I think I got a few more minutes, and oh, no, it's late. Man, I talked my way through. All right. I'm going to wrap it up because at 8 p.m. we've got Janice Misrell Mitchell coming on. Thank you all very, very much for being here tonight. I really appreciate it. Once again, if you'd like to support me in whatever way, you can go to aerophonicrecords.com and buy a record. I would greatly appreciate that. A new one out today called The Eagle with Michael Foster on saxophones, Jason Roebke on bass, Tyler Damon on drums. I'll be continuing these live streams every week on Wednesday nights. Check out daverempis.com/live for that. And thank you guys very much. Really, really appreciate you all being here tonight and checking it out. And yeah, big hugs out there. Everyone stay well. Keep your heads together. We're all going to make it through this fucking weird time. So yeah, thanks everybody. Take it easy.